Hello and welcome to Unit 4. We are working on our 1-point perspective room project, and today our lesson is 4.03. We're going to start by drawing a box. This is a practice session in that we are getting prepared in the program, learning how to use that program, and we're going to do a box drawing to do that. So, first thing we need to understand is we do need to understand this concept of parallel lines. So, what are parallel lines? Well, they are lines that travel side by side and have the same distance consistently between them the entire time. They will never meet. So you can see that line 1 is parallel to line 2 because there is a consistent amount of space between them the entire length of the line. Both of these lines are going to continue on forever, never meeting, never getting any closer to one another. That's what parallel lines are. So we're going to use that term when we start to draw some of our lines here today. So just wanted to remind you of that. And you can see here, this is a really poor example of a box. And take a minute, look at that diagram and see if you can point out where the big mistake is. If you decided that that big mistake is this back section, the front looks pretty good. There's a little gap here. And these lines travel back to that vanishing point, which is nice. But this back gets a little wonky. That's because we're not utilizing those parallel lines. So if I put a line here for the face of this box, and I put another line back here, that line actually indicates where the back edge of that box should be, because the front edge of the face and the back edge of the box will run parallel to each other. The same is true about the sides. So the right front side of the box is running perfectly perpendicular to the red line or the top, which means we do have a 90-degree corner here in the top of this box, which makes sense because we know that this is a perfect square in the front. That green line represents the front right edge. From that line, we go back to the back. We know that that back edge also needs to be parallel to that front edge. So that would mark where the back edge of that right side of the box would be. So when we're looking at that and we clean that up, you can see how those lines are perfectly straight and the original lines were a little bit off or wonky. So we're going to take a look at that a little bit more as we draw our boxes today, but I wanted to point that out. And then obviously we'd clean up and erase those mistakes. All right, so our first job today in drawing a box is going to be to create a project folder. So we'll do that locally on our hard drive. And then we're going to go ahead and open up our program, which is the program Paint. We will start by saving our file. Then we're going to draw in a horizon line and a vanishing point. From there, we're going to add a couple of layers and we're going to draw a box. We're going to clean up, we're going to erase, and then we're going to take a screenshot when we're all done. So that's our basic outline for today. So let's go ahead. I'm going to get out to my desktop here. And we're going to start by creating a folder. So I'm going to go to my File Explorer, click on that little yellow folder. On the left-hand side, we always save our documents in our digital art folder. So we're going to go here to Documents, find that digital art folder. In that digital art folder, we don't have a new project folder, so we can either click this new button right over here to create a new folder, or in the white space underneath, I can right-click, New Folder, and it pops open a new folder. This folder is going to be called Paint because that's the name of the program that we're using. Space, hyphen, space, 1 point, PT is an abbreviation for that, 1 point, perspective room. And then we just hit enter on our keyboard to set that name. So now we have a folder to store all of our files for this project. After you have your folder created locally on the hard drive, what we're going to do is we're going to close out of that window and we're going to open up our program. So I'm going to come down here to the search bar and I'm just going to type in the program name, which is Paint. You will see this beautiful paint palette, blue, and the word paint in your apps. You're just going to click on that program. When you open the program, it should look something like this. At the top of the program, we have our menu bar, File, Edit, View, a Save icon, a Share icon, and an Undo or Redo button. Okay, those are going to come in really handy for this project. Underneath that, we have our option bar or our toolbar. And so we have a select tool. We'll use that sometimes. We'll definitely use our pencil tool. We'll use our eraser tool. We're going to start today here in a minute with our text tool. We'll use our magnifying glass tool. When we get into color, we'll use our fill bucket and our color picker as well. In the shapes section, we're going to do primary. The most amount of our drawing is going to be using the line tool. So we'll use our line tool. Once we select the line tool, you'll notice that you have a couple of options. We are going to make sure that our line is a solid outline as we draw our composition. And we are going to do this with a 1 pixel wide line. So those are things we're going to be changing immediately. After that, we do have some colors. We're going to be drawing primarily with black to get started and some blue. And then we will change these things to other colors later on down the line. There is a custom color picker where you can come in and pick lots of other different color options. There's our Copilot, and then the other thing on the far right side here is our layers tool. We're going to actually start right now by saving our file, and then we're going to jump in and use our layers tool. It is best practice when we are getting started to save our project and file name first and get that location where it's going to be saved set up. So we're going to start by going over here to File. We're going to go down to Save as Project. And because this first part is a practice, we're going to make sure that we are saving this in the right location first. We're going to go to Documents. We're going to go to Digital Art Studio. We're going to go to 1 Point Perspective Room. And this is our practice document. So we're going to come up here to File Name. And we're going to type in our naming conventions. So Goswick, last name, space, comma, space, first name, space, hyphen, space, the name of the program, paint, space, hyphen, space, and then we're going to type in draw a box. Okay, because this is our practice. So we're going to type in draw a box, and then we're going to make sure that the save as type says Microsoft Paint project file type. It is a .paint file, which we're going to use throughout our creation part of our project. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. You'll notice that up at the top left-hand corner, our file name is now present. And so now we are going to go ahead and get started with this document. The first thing that I want to point out is that this is our canvas that we're working on here in the main screen. We can adjust the canvas size by dragging those corners, and it will nicely center that on our screen. So we want to have a nice big canvas with just a little bit of space all the way around on our screen. So this one is approximately 1,483 by 786 pixels. So that's a good size. Something around that, doesn't have to be exactly that, will be perfectly fine for this practice drawing. The next thing that we're going to do to get things set up is we're going to come over here to our layers palette, and we have one layer currently on this document. So we're going to actually add some notes for ourselves to keep ourselves organized with this drawing process. So the first note that we're going to do is we're going to come over here to our tools. We're going to click on our text tool. We're going to come down here to the bottom left-hand side, and I am going to adjust my size. If it doesn't say 36, you want to make sure that it says 36. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to click once, and then I'm going to type in here rough sketch. Okay. Before I hit enter or set that, I'm going to grab with my move tool. So I just kind of hover over it until the move tool comes active, and I'm going to just drag that up so that it is sitting on the canvas. The other thing that I'm going to do with this text is the rough sketch is always going to be done in blue. So I highlight my sketch and I'm going to make that text blue. Now that I feel like I'm done with this, I can click off of that box, and now that is set as part of that layer. The one thing that you have to understand about paint is we cannot go back and make changes to things after they are set on the layer. So this rough sketch, I can't go back and re-highlight it. It just wants me to make new text boxes. I can't go back to any other tool, and it is there. Okay, so I have to live with it now. So that's layer one that we're going to use is going to be for our rough sketch. We're going to come over here to the layers palette. I'm going to add a second layer. This layer will be on top of our rough sketch layer. And over here on the right side of our canvas, I'm going to click, and I'll move it up because I can tell that it's also very low on the screen. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to type good sketch. Okay. And, or let's say not sketch, good drawing. Okay, good drawing. And with the good drawing, we're going to highlight that text, and that's going to be black. So I'm changing it up here in the options, just like that. And then again, I'll click off of that, and that is going to set that on the layer. Now you can see over here in the thumbnails, very tiny, is that blue rough sketch. And on that layer 1 and on layer 2, if I hover, layer 2 says good drawing. Now, if I want to hide and show layers over here, I can hide my good drawing layer. And I do get this notification that right now that layer is the active layer that I'm trying to draw on, and it's hidden. So my active layer is hidden. So I have to go show layer and it will come back. Or I can hide that layer and make my rough sketch layer active, and now I can draw on that layer. I can also hide my rough sketch layer and show my good drawing and activate that. You know what active layer you have based on the blue highlight over here in the layers palette. You can see that now my good drawing is highlighted, my rough sketch is highlighted, and it's not active because it's not visible. Now both are visible, and I am on my rough sketch layer. Okay, why is this important? Well, because we're going to draw on both layers and we're going to flip around back and forth between them, and we want to always make sure we're drawing on the correct layer with the correct color. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by drawing on the good drawing. So I'm going to make sure my layer 2 here is active. So I have my blue box around that. I'm going to switch tools. I don't want the text tool anymore. I'm going to grab my line tool here from the shape section. I'm going to make sure that line is solid outline, and I'm going to make sure that it is 1 pixel wide. We will be drawing everything 1 pixel wide. So just double check that it does say 1 pixel and my color is black. The first line that we're going to draw here on this composition is our horizon line. So we're going to come high on the paper. We're going to start on the left-hand side. We're going to draw across. Now to make that line perfectly straight, we're going to hold the shift button. And now we have a nice perfectly straight horizon line. Okay, so take a moment and do that right now. Remember to pause your video between steps and complete the steps along the way. After I've drawn my horizon line, I did click off of that line to deselect it. We're now going to go ahead and put in a vanishing point. So to do this, what we're going to do is I am going to use a brush tool because it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to click on the brush tool. The brush is just the basic brush at the top. And let's say it's probably, let's go like 7 pixels or 8 pixels over here on the left side. I'm going to come in somewhere, maybe make it a little bigger, 11. Somewhere on the horizon line, you choose. I want you to put your dot from your brush on that line. Just click once, and it'll put a nice little dot on the line. Now that is our vanishing point. Okay, I'm going to go back to my line tool. It's a safe place to be. And we're going to start drawing the face of our box. So I'm going to go and grab a rectangle tool. Since I have the rectangle selected, I am just going to double check. Solid outline didn't change, 1 pixel wide didn't change. But when I did switch to this box, I also got this new option here, which is the shape fill. And we want to make sure that by default, no fill is selected. Depending on your drawing using this program, those settings may change. So right now, we're just going to check that there's no fill for that box. All right, I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle, or a box on the screen. If you want that to be a perfect square, you can hold the shift button and the program will keep the proportions perfect. If you want it to be a rectangle, you just draw what you want. So click and drag to draw a box. All right, fabulous. I can click off of that box to set that box. Again, once you set that thing, you cannot go back and change it. From there, we're going to draw a few lines to the vanishing point. So I'm going to go grab my line tool. I'm going to start at my vanishing point, so I'll put my cursor up there on that point, and I'm going to draw down from that point and line up perfectly with the corner of the rectangle. When I'm happy with that line, I'll click off of it, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. I'm going to click on my vanishing point, drag to the top corner of the other side. When it lines up perfectly, I'll release. If I make a mistake, I can always use my move tool after and kind of fix that mistake. Sometimes I'll even tell you go beyond it if your cursor's in the way, like that, so that you know that it hits that corner perfectly. and then you can release or activate that line by clicking off of it. Okay, you set that line. All right, I'm going to do my last line from the vanishing point down to the bottom right-hand corner, and I'll release. All right, so that looks pretty good. We know we have a little bit of cleanup to do over here with this extension. It does look like that box is traveling back to that vanishing point. So let's start by cleaning up this little extended line. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom and just scroll with my zoom tool. And now I can use my sliding bar at the top, bottom, and on the right-hand side to kind of position that. I'll grab my eraser tool, and I'm just going to go really close up to it, click, and that looks pretty good. I've erased that extension. All right, so I'm going to zoom back out to my whole project. And what I really just need is that vanishing point in my box for right now. So at this point, we need to think back to what we were talking about with those parallel lines to close off the edges of our box. So I'm going to go back and grab my line tool. I don't want this box to float back into space on forever. I want to close it and stop those edges. So the front of this box is perfectly straight on the right-hand side. So if I come back the side of that right side of the box, and I decide I want the box to be that long, I'm going to start on that bottom diagonal line. I'm going to hold the shift button so my line is perfectly straight, click and drag up until it meets that next diagonal line. Then I will release the shift button and release my mouse, then release the shift button. A little bit of an overextension there. I hope I hit that bottom as I'm looking at it. It looks a little bit shy there. I do have a little piece I'm going to have to extend there. Or if I can hit the undo button, and I can try that again. So I'll start on the diagonal line, hold my shift button, go up perfectly straight. When I hit that diagonal up at the top, I'll release my mouse, and then I'll release the shift button. That's a much better side to my box. Now, because the front of my box is perfectly straight left to right, my top edge of this box in the back also needs to follow the rule of being perfectly straight and parallel to the front of the box. So I'm going to start here on that intersection that I just created. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag over to the right. I will hold the shift button to make that line perfectly straight. And once that line hits that new diagonal on the back left side, I will release my mouse and then release the shift button. Okay, that looks pretty darn good. If I zoom out, we can kind of see how I've closed off that box, but you still see those lines traveling back to the vanishing point. So what I can do now is I'm going to zoom back into that area, and everything beyond the vanishing point, I'm going to grab my eraser tool. I'll start really close and just click, kind of stamp, 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 stamp to erase. I'll come over here, do the same, line it up, stamp, or click. Once I get away from my box a little bit, I can be a little more aggressive and just click and drag this back out of my way. Get close to my box, carefully stamp that first one or click and draw back. I'll use my little scrolling bars to get back to that vanishing point and continue to erase those lines that I do not need in my composition. This project is a lot of draw, erase, and zooming. I want to be very careful. I do not erase that horizon line, and I do not erase my vanishing point. So I'm just going to take my time right there and make sure that I clean up those lines. Okay, I'm going to go back out to see what my box looks like. Fabulous. And so far, everything we have drawn is on our good drawing paper or layer. Okay, so it looks really nice. We can go ahead and use that right like that. There is, with the new version of Paint that we're using for this project, because we do have layers, there's an additional way we can draw a box. So I'm going to go through that process here. Very similar. We're going to use our rectangle tool. We're going to start by drawing our box. I'm going to move that box over here just a little more closer to that other box there. Okay, so I have my box. When I'm happy with it, the area where it looks like the size, the placement, I'm going to click off of it to set that box. Now I just did all of this on my good drawing slide. Okay, I can even hide that rough slide, right? I'm doing all my drawing on my good slide. Now I'm going to switch over to my rough slide for a moment, but I'm going to leave my good slide visible. If I turn it off, I lose my horizon line and my vanishing point. So I'm going to leave it visible, but I'm going to make sure that I have my layer 1 active and the blue outline is around it, and I'm going to change to my blue color. Okay. Now I'm going to, this is rough sketch. I'm going to sketch in some lines where that edges of the box go. So I'm going to start at my vanishing point. Get there, start, and I'm going to, oops, I need to change tools. I need to get in my line tool. Start at my vanishing point, and I'm going to draw there to the corner of the box. Set that line. I'm going to click on my vanishing point and draw over to the other corner of the top of the box. Set the line, and then my last edge of the box. Like that, and set the line. Okay, so my blue lines are my rough sketch. Okay, fabulous. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reactivate my layer 2. So that's my active layer. And I'm going to change black back to my black color. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to reposition so that you can still see my horizon line and my vanishing point. At this point, I'm going to close off the sides of my box. So just like before, because this front right side is perfectly straight, I'm going to travel back this diagonal line. When I decide I want to close the box, that's how deep I want that box to be, I'm going to start on that diagonal line. I'm going to hit Shift, and I'm going to draw a perfectly straight line up till it meets that diagonal line at the top of the box. I'm going to click off of that line. The front edge, top edge of the box is perfectly straight. It is a horizontal line. So I also need to do the same thing. So where this line intersects with this diagonal that we just created, I'm going to start there. I'm going to click and I'm going to draw a line over towards the right. When it hits the diagonal on the right back side, I'm going to release my mouse and then I'll release the shift button. So now I have a perfectly straight line. If I go over to my layers palette and I hide my rough sketch, I lose the edges of my box. Okay, so I'm not going to do that right now, but I wanted to show you what we have so far on our good sketch. Okay, so I'm going to show us those guidelines again, okay, from our rough sketch. With my black line, I'm now going to connect the corner of my box to the corner back here, corner of my box here. I'm not going beyond now. I'm using my rough sketch lines to help me line that line up at the perfect angle. Start at the bottom of my box, line up there. It's pretty good, I think. Nope. Undo if you don't like it. Start is a little bit off there, but if I go to here, we should be good. I think that's connected, but I'm not sure. Yes, I'm good there. Okay, after I have that done, now I can hide that guidelines and I do less erasing. So you can utilize those layers to help you have less cleanup. Okay. Either way, I will be perfectly happy if you draw your box. I think I have an extra pixel in here, so I'm going to zoom in and I will still clean up a little bit. There, we didn't need that one. And check my edges. Everything else looks pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with. Oh, extra pixel right here. Every pixel counts. There's actually an extra one right here too. So I got to clean up those edges. That looks pretty good. Awesome. So I'll zoom back out so you can see our finished result. Okay, again, guidelines on for a rough sketch. We can use those so that we don't have to erase quite as much. Can turn that off and we have our good drawing. So for our progress photos today, I am going to leave that rough sketch on and I'm going to go ahead and take my screenshot right here. So I'm going to hit that Windows Shift S. When I take my screenshot, I do want to make sure that I get the name of the project up at the top, a little bit of the program, the layers palette on the right side, and the bottom. So it's pretty much the entire screen for this project. After that, I will take my screenshot. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. With that screenshot, I'm going to put it into my documents, digital art, and screenshot folder. In there, this is lesson 4.03. So I'll title it 4.03, draw a box, and I'm going to hit save. So I have that sketch or that screenshot for this project for the progress sketchbooks. So take a moment, take your screenshot, make sure you submit that properly into your progress sketchbook. If you have any questions or concerns about this step of the project, please reach out and let me know. Otherwise, enjoy the process.